Derby County manager John Eustace has addressed the media ahead of Derby County's Friday night fixture up against Bristol City. He addressed their performance up against Coventry while also discussing transfer links to Kyoki Soto as well as the potential move for Lewis Travis. He discusses injury updates on the likes of Curtis Nelson, Ryan Brewster, Patrick Agyemang and Lars-Jørgen Selvesen as Derby County head into their third league game of the season. Now Derby County are still seeking points, but it's really important that John Eustace pinpoints the process is still undergoing. Kane Wilson is back within the group and Ryan Brewster played minutes on Tuesday afternoon in a behind closed doors friendly up against Oxford United. We're a few weeks away from seeing returns for Patrick Agyemang and Lars-Jørgen Selvesen as they're due back with the group next week, but we're going to get into that in this video. We're going to discuss everything that John Eustace had to say, from player signings to fitness levels and everything he wants to expect from this squad moving forward. So if you have not done so already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I will be live later on today, so if you haven't done so already, make sure the notification bell is on so you get notified when I do go live. Make sure you check out the sponsors down in the description. NordVPN for your VPNs, Kitbag for your sporting goods, and CD keys for anything gaming related. But shall we now get into the press conference? John Eustace started the press conference discussing the result up against Coventry City, where it was obviously very, very disappointing for Derby to come away with nothing, really. After scoring 3 goals at home, you don't ever want to come away from that game without a result, and that is just the brutal honesty from it. But what John Eustace did like was the group work rate was there, the effort, the desire, the determination was there. The big problem really seemed to come in the way that we conceded, and all of the goals were poor goals to concede. You look at the first one was a bit of a goalkeeper error, and then you've got some defensive errors along the way as well, and then you look at the final 2 goals that we concede. It's a very, very good save from Zetterstrom onto the post, but nobody tracks the runner who then slots it into an empty net, and then with a final goal, the fullbacks just can't keep up with play, which was obviously disappointing. And John Eustace said that it was a collective defensive issue and it starts from the front and works all the way down. We've got to be more difficult to break down in build-up, and that is the only way that Derby County are going to become more impactful in that defensive situation. And one of the most important things is we have to defend the box better. Now, a lot of people will be discussing that because I think it was 2 of the goals came from set pieces that we conceded, maybe 3. And obviously some of those were unnecessary set pieces. Sanderson taking down one of the Coventry players in the box was obviously disappointing to watch. You've then obviously got the free kick where Zetterstrom should have done better, and then obviously you've got the long throw which got Coventry back into the game in complete and honesty. And the important thing is that it is only going to get better from here. It can only go up. There's no way Derby County don't win a game in 46 or don't pick up a point in 46. So we've got to be very open and honest with ourselves. And realistically, it's just about trying to find a solution and the team learning to know and understand each other and what each other needs. We had a very sort of solid 8 or 9 towards the back end of last year. And ultimately, that is what helped us in that run of form where we ended up staying in the division. And obviously, as this team gels and gets to know each other, it will get better and we will become a better side long term. But obviously, it's all about getting players back fit, back within the group and getting them back on the pitch. Now, the big problem that John Eustace spoke about is that the players know their jobs. It's just about being able to do it consistently for 90 minutes, which is where we've had the problem so far. And especially against Coventry, after about 70 minutes, we completely dropped off the boil. In my opinion, I think Eustace needs to take a little bit of the blame for that. I think he should have made changes during that natural stoppage of play, which happened due to the medical emergency. And I feel as if that was one of the big problems that Derby County sort of caused themselves a problem. Now, he was asked a question in regards to style and systems and things like that, and his sort of words to rebut that was, we just need to find a way to win, score and keep a clean sheet. That is what we need. And at the moment, Derby County don't have any fit natural wide players. Obviously, Corey Blackett-Taylor getting injured. Bobby Clark's not a wide player, he's a 10. Andreas Weiman's a 10. The only real wide player we've got in the club is Kyoki Soto, who... no, it isn't Kyoki Soto. My apologies, I'm getting I'm way ahead of myself. It's Corey Blackett-Taylor, and obviously we still haven't had confirmation of Cioto coming to join Derby County. Now, Eustace was discussing that they could still potentially play a back four on Friday, even with no wide players. That could see Derby County set up in a diamond in midfield, with obviously maybe a David Ozo sitting, with Adams and Kenzo either side, with Vyman as the 10. You look at Jackson and Morris as the 2 9s. But we'll have to wait and see sort of how that develops when the team sheet does drop in just over, 48 hours time from right now as I'm recording this video. It'll be about 18 hours away when you're watching this, which will be very, very interesting. There is obviously positives to take from this, and it is the fact that effort isn't a problem. The team is still lacking a little bit of fitness, and realistically, there's a great team spirit amongst the squad, amongst the staff, and amongst the fan base, because as much as results aren't going our way, we all know about the process. And the most important thing, and one of the biggest positives we can take away from this game, is that we've scored in every single one. And that's all the way back through pre-season as well. We've managed to score in every single game. Now, this probably means that Friday will be a 0-0 draw, because John Eustace said that. But ultimately, that is the facts of the current situation. Now, he did mention players who got minutes on Tuesday. We saw Rhian Brewster, Bobby Clark, Dejon Brown and Ben Osborne all step in for the B team as they faced up against Oxford United. I think it's in the Central Midlands League. I think that's what it's called. Brewster played 45. Clark, Brown and Osborne all played significant minutes. Not entirely sure what that really means, but we'll have to wait and see. And one of the most important things that was noted on Monday was Kane Wilson is back involved with the group, but is probably still a couple of weeks away. It was just his first training session back on Monday and has now been back within the group the last 3 or 4 days. In my personal opinion, I don't think he'll be back till the international break, but we will have an injury update video out later on. Brewster looked sharp in training. He's played 45 versus Oxford, which obviously puts him in a good situation, but he will be assessed heading into Friday. It's important that he's protected going into the season, because obviously he's had his injury issues. Last year was probably his only injury-free year of his career, and that means that in that situation, Derby County have to make sure he's fit and available going forward, which obviously we don't want to rush him back into the first team and cause those fitness issues to re-spark. He was then asked about the signing of Rhian Brewster, in which he went, he was a top player, spent last year injury-free. I think he played around 40 games. Club worked hard to sign him, and the important thing is helping him feel at home. And again, John Eustace was on about that point about players that he's bringing in having a point to prove and having something to make clear to fans of former clubs, fans of the club that have just bought them in and things like that. And I do think that that is very, very interesting. And it was interesting to hear that John Eustace had a couple of phone calls with Rhian Brewster in order to get this deal over the line. I think it shows that the pull that John Eustace has. Yes, Paul Warne used to have these phone calls, but we'd hear about Paul Warne talking to players all the time and we would never really get anyone through the door. In this case, Rhian Brewster came through the door. Now, he was then asked questions about the market, in which John Eustace turned around and said it is a bit of a challenging market. There's certain players that they wanted that they weren't able to get done. They're still quite short in certain positions, but they are working hard in getting deals done that need to be done across the course of this upcoming summer window. Obviously, as we head towards the January window that will be upcoming, it is important to note that we are rebuilding, whereas some of the other squads in this division have very stable and settled squads. Even a Birmingham City, a Wrexham, they've got like a key cohort of players that have always been there, whereas Derby County in our current position, we let 12 or 13 players go in the summer. Although some of them weren't necessarily involved in playing, it's still a big rebuild job to fill out them squad spaces with players who are going to have an impact, and that is obviously what John Eustace is trying to do. We discussed the 3 teams that we've played already this season: Cov, Stoke and West Brom, who across the course of the last 2 or 3 years in the Championship, they've had very sort of settled squads, and there's names in those squads that have been there 3 or 4 years, maybe a little bit longer for some of them, which obviously makes it a little bit easier when you're coming back into pre-season, when you're building into a season, because you know the tactical style, you know the shape, you know how you're going to set up on opening day and you know how you're going to go forward and what players a manager needs and things like that. Whereas for us, it's been quite tough in sort of knowing the style, knowing the system, knowing the attributes of the players, because a lot of players have moved on this summer. And obviously that is exactly what John Eustace was talking about in regards to the transfer window being tough and things like that. And Eustace was asked a question in regards to when the transfer window closes, and he thinks that really depends on the manager you talk to and where they feel their squad is at, because you'll have some managers that have settled squads that will turn around and go, we want it shut in before the start of the season, because then their players can't be moved on, so they don't have to replace anybody. Whereas, obviously, a club like Derby County, who are still trying to get business done at this point of the season, it's really important for it still to be open. And it's really important to get the right players in at the right time to fill those gaps and make the team better. But it's about having the right players, and that's what John Eustace was keen to point out. And he's always keen to do things in the right way, which is what the club is obviously trying to do this summer, and we're going to have to wait to see whether that includes spending more money or not. John Eustace does believe that the club does have bids that are active, and the club are speaking to a range of different players, and he believes it will go all the way to the deadline. But he did make it clear that even if the club aren't able to bring in any more players, the squad will be ready to go. We will be up for it, and we will be up to the challenge, and the squad will be fit, it'll be honest, and it'll be robust. And as much as the current results haven't gone the way we wanted, there is positives to take. He was then asked to discuss his thoughts and opinions on the upcoming Bristol City game, where he says it's going to be a tough game, but a really exciting one. It is always a challenge to face a team like Bristol City, but the squad are ready to go. Obviously, Bristol City, very well drilled. They have a very good squad. We know a couple of the names on that team sheet, the likes of Hayden Roberts, the likes of Emery Jacobson, Jason Knight, Max Bird, all players who have come through at Derby County and spent time here at some point in the case of Hayden Roberts, and it will be interesting to see how that develops over the course of this upcoming weekend. Now, obviously, we want points on the board, but it's important that the fans back the squad, and John Eustace knows that will happen so long as the hard work is there and we can see improvements game on game, but obviously that is going to take time. The fans will obviously back the squad. We know that, and the important thing is that they know all about the process and that it needs to be backed, not just by the players coming through the door, but also the staff and also the fan base alike. Everyone needs to understand what's going on, and I think that many people within the fan base do understand it. There's obviously a few who are taking the results quite difficultly, and that's obviously disappointing to see. But for me, I think we're in a very, very good position. I think everybody is happy with where the club is heading, even if the results right now aren't particularly going to plan. Obviously, it's an amazing club, John Eustace says, and everybody needs to see it together. We need to wait and see on targets. He was asked a question about Kyoki Kyoto, of which he didn't really go into much detail, said that he's a great player that a lot of people are looking at, and he really appreciates that that we're being linked with these top players that have played in the Championship and elsewhere, and that he really hopes that some deals can obviously get done. He was then asked a question in regards to the future of Kmar Roof, who obviously started pre-season with us, then picked up a knock, I think it was around the Warsaw game, and John Eustace was keen to say that he's been great with his time with us, but obviously did break down about 3.5 weeks into pre-season. He's not surprised there's interest elsewhere, but he has been within more farm, where he's been keeping fit and ready and available to go. Now, we are going to get onto the injuries in another video tomorrow later on, and we will discuss everything to do with that. We'll obviously be with a live stream not long after that as well, so make sure if you have not done so already, you've hit that like button, you've hit that subscribe button, and you've turned on that notification bell, and we'll be back for everything later on.